Beyond the Wild.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Wild podcast. Very special episode. I know I've been saying that a lot lately, but they all have been. Tonight we've got a guest coming back on that we've visited with before on a different format with Wild and Exposed. But Ben Masters with Fin and Fur Films. Ben is coming to us. We're going to discuss a project that he's got or had going on. And yeah, we were hoping to have his director of photography, Ryan, with us tonight. Wasn't able to make it because we had to adjust our timeline. It wasn't his fault. But thanks, Ben, for coming on with us.
I'm thrilled to be here. I appreciate you having me. I'm a big fan of y'all's podcast, and just really tickled to come and nerd out about filming some critters.
Before we get into the project, I want to talk about this spring because you were part of a cleanup recovery. You were kind of right in the heart of the floods down there in Texas. Tell us about that.
Oh man, yeah, it's really shaken our community. I have spent a lot of time on the Guadalupe. I don't live there, but I was married on its banks and have floated it several dozen times. I have a bunch of friends that live there, and that flood was real. I mean, it was just an amount of water that I'd never comprehended being there. I mean, I've floated it many times, and you look up, and it's like, oh, look up there during that floodwater. It wrapped that canoe, 15 feet up the tree, and like that amount of water made sense to me. But for the river to rise in some spots, nearly 30 feet, and then to spill outside of its banks, to engulf everything hundreds of yards away from the river, just where the water was, it just boggled my mind. And but yeah, I had a close friend, lost her vehicles, she had like her primary residence and then like a couple little small houses next to it. And everything but one of those structures was entirely swept away. And then the one structure that wasn't had, significant damage to the inside. And she's just acting like she's just the luckiest person in the world because she didn't die, because a lot of her neighbors did. And it's just so unbelievably sad what happened. And there's a lot of cleanup efforts that's going to be done. They're going to be picking trash out of that river for a long time. So if you've got a free weekend and want to come down and do some river cleanups, there's a lot to clean up.
Well, that's good to know because as the winter comes and everybody finishes up with their fall activities, there are opportunities to go give back. I'm sure there'll still be plenty of work to do this winter, and you can actually move around down there where we're starting to get snow up here. So that's a good point. Plenty of places to volunteer.
Yeah, no doubt. There's plenty of trash left in the river. There will be for a long time. I remember standing on the banks at one point in time and just looking at it. And from the point that I was at, there was 6 buildings that used to exist, and they were just reduced to just rubble that sank to the bottom after they were pushed off and destroyed. There was a diesel tank in the middle of the river. There was like 3 vehicles that were visible. One of them was in a tree. And then there was a horse trailer flipped upside down. And then like all of the metal siding for a bunch of garage ports and like other outside buildings were just wrapped around every single one of the trees. It just looked like a bomb went off. It was so unbelievably powerful, the amount of water. For the river nerds out there that, look at CFS to see how rivers are flowing to go float it. The Guadalupe at its peak was pumping around 185,000 CFS during that flood. For comparison, that's about twice as much water that's ever been recorded going down the Grand Canyon. So It's just an insane quantity of water.
Hmm.
Yeah,
That
and
is
what
crazy.
I worry about those kinds of things too is it kind of, it happens. It's a big deal. It's front of mind for for a little while, and then it kind of gets off the radar, and people kind of forget about it. Not the folks that went through it, obviously, but others that might be able to help and lend a hand or donate or whatever way they might be able to contribute. Right. So I don't think it's worth bringing up and keep in front of mind for folks that there are
Hmm.
opportunities for sure. But
Yeah, and I mean, I think the thing for me that I learned is, if you live on a waterway, just imagine what would happen if 16 inches of rain dumped in 2 hours upstream of you. Are your structures safe? Is your family safe? Because it dumped like over a foot of rain in a matter of an hour and a half or so on just this little tiny localized area, and that just blew everything out that river. So it was a wake up call to a lot of folks in Texas, and there's a lot of communities that are very vulnerable if something like that happens again.
Yeah.
And the ecological sadness of it breaks my heart. I mean, the Guadalupe River was
Right.
our cypress sanctuary of the hill country.
yeah,
Yeah, I remember you were kind of standing up on an elevated bank and did, I guess, kind of a story or something, just a little social media post, and just kind of scanning the opposite bank, and it was it was incredible the devastation that wall of water had on the environment.
Yeah, a whole new respect for
Hmm.
what a flood can do after that.
yeah,
But we're not here to talk about
Yeah,
that.
let's be happy now.
Let's talk about some salmon flies,
yeah.
some
Right.
elk hissing on each other, and some condors.
So tell us a little bit about your latest project.
So we just finished up making a movie called The American Southwest. I know, very original title. As you could probably guess, it is about the American Southwest, which we defined as the geographic area of the Colorado River Basin. So the movie is a wildlife movie that is blue chip natural history is the genre. So it's planet Earth in style, where you have a narrator that is your guide that takes you through all these different wildlife sequences and all these different landscapes. The movie is right at 100 minutes long, and it is a journey from the headwaters of the Colorado River downstream from Rocky Mountain National Park through Colorado, Utah, Arizona, touches Nevada and California, and dumps its way out at the Gulf of California, or used to dump its way out at the Gulf of California.
Yeah.
And yeah, we kind of filmed all these different wildlife sequences from source to sea, and in the midst of all those wildlife sequences, talked a little bit about our human footprint on the land, and particularly on water. Really showcased how the water is divvied up and allocated out to all the different uses to such an extent where the river is completely depleted.
Yeah, that so the water rights system is supposed to protect that, right? And ensure that the water gets where it's supposed to go. And then all of a sudden you've got a major river system that has nothing left to give. It's
Yeah, lots of problems with the Colorado River, but pretty much boiling it down is whenever they made the plan to divvy up all of the water from the Colorado River, they grossly miscalculated the quantity of water that was actually there.
mhm,
They based it off of a period of time, well, of like a 10-year abundant period, and they assumed that that was the average long
mhm,
term. So the baseline data of the amount of annual water was off drastically. They assumed that there would be around 17 to 18 million cubic acre feet each year, and that's what they divvied out between all of the different states. But in reality, the past handful of decades, there's been an average of only like 12 to 14 million cubic acre feet each year. So the river is over allocated by several million acre feet. And because of that, it's so litigated and controversial, and raises a lot of serious concerns around, what is the best use of this water. And in my opinion, I think one of the best uses for the water is to keep some of it in the river, to manage it for river health, to have abundant salmon flies, to have abundant trout, to have, healthy river ecosystems. And currently, river health priority is not something that is people are speaking up for whenever they talk about the Colorado River Basin, enough at least.
Mm-hmm.
So we were able to preview your movie, and it is amazing. It's as good as anything I've seen. The cinematography, diving into the different species and tremendous variety you cover that support these ecosystems, that rely on the watershed, backs it up so thoroughly and so visually wonderfully. That I just had to put that out there so they're hearing your passion and concern about the water, and there's so much to learn on your movie. I mean, how the water biology changes through these man-made systems was quite very interesting to think about, and how that impacts the natural ecosystem. But that aside, from a photography, and not that I'm thinking we should focus on it a bit. It's amazing the cinematography that your team captured to evoke such care and concern for, I'll let you bring up the species you focused on, and the guys I know, I can't wait to hear about some of the techniques to capture them. And again, so diverse. So buckle up, everybody. This is an amazing movie. Truly it is. We get to hear about behind the scenes. Your writing, I got so many quotes written down. It was wonderful. It just tied it together, and so artistic and eloquent at times too. So yeah, everybody, you've got to pay attention to this podcast. It's there's so much just to learn about with this spectacular film, and it's incredibly meaningful. So sorry, I just wanted to put some emphasis on that before we get rolling.
I'm glad you like it, Mark. We put a lot of love and care into it, a lot of time, and and it shows. Like the majority of the team is from the Southwest. I'm from Texas, but I've spent a lot of time in the Southwest, and the movie was made with the care and the love of people that are talking about their home. They're talking about their water. They're talking about their wildlife, and it shows. It shows. You feel it in the film.
You do.
It's personal.
Mm-hmm.
And it's beautiful. But then again, it's kind of hard to mess up shooting landscapes in the Southwest.
Right.
But there's so many layers to it. You did that brilliantly, your team. But the salmon flies, the beaver story, the rattlesnakes, the
I thought
Condor.
you were going to let him bring up all the species.
Well, we got to dive into that. Man, there's so many layers to it. Just
all right. So you want me to tell the species, Ron?
Yeah, let's go. Yeah, I mean, Mark introduced it. That's a good introduction, and yeah, let's go through the list of what you guys covered.
So whenever we were structuring out this story, we were trying to identify different species and behavior that spoke to something larger than just a pretty critter doing something neat. We wanted to tie it into the greater story, which is, following the Colorado River from source to sea, as well as the side story of, the human impact on the landscape, really beginning, with native peoples and then taking it all the way up to today. And, the good, the bad, and the ugly, as well as the unintended consequences of, not thinking a century ahead and not adapting. Mm-hmm. But we focused from the top. We did an elk story in Rocky Mountain National Park that kind of told of mankind's ability to recover wildlife, literally from the brink of extinction. I think, the elk recovery story in the United States is one that doesn't get told enough. It's amazing what we've been able to do with the reintroduction and rewilding of elks over the last, 120 years. Then we told a beaver story below that and kind of talked about how beavers manipulate a landscape and build dams and spread the water across these valley floors, and how it slows down water and creates fire breaks and provides all this habitat for fish and moose and all sorts of other cool stuff. And then we did a cutthroat trout story, a spawning story, and we did a salmon fly emergence metamorphosis and flying story, which I'm immensely proud of. And then we did a petroglyph story that kind of paid homage to the folks that have lived out there and been telling wildlife stories for several thousands of years. Some of the wildlife petroglyphs that are found across the
Mm-hmm.
Southwest speak of, good time for people who are swapping some yarns and telling some great stories. There's bighorn sheep and bears and all sorts of cool stuff on all those panels in the Four Corners area. And we produced the film with the outfit called Natives Outdoors, which is based in Tucson. And we used a lot of their cinematographers and producers to help write the script and, tell that story as respectfully as we could. I'm a white dude from Amarillo, so it's not my story to tell, but
Mm-hmm.
Lynn Nessifer, the producer there, kind of helped guide us and do a respectful job. And, really gave him the reins on that whole sequence. And I think it's the heart of the film, to be honest. Then we did a Condor story in the Grand Canyon, did a public land story through the Grand Canyon, and then we did a Mojave rattlesnake sequence. It's a rattlesnake courtship scene that you didn't know that you wanted to watch. Followed by a saguaro cactus scene down in Tucson that I'm also particularly proud of. It really shows the adaptations that those desert plants have been able to hone in to survive and thrive so well,
Mm-hmm.
both in the Sonoran Desert as well as in the Mojave. And then the last sequence is one that I am most proud of as a camera trapper and big cat enthusiast. We got some absolutely outrageous Jaguar footage. And then we did a scene on the Delta and what it would look like if we gave some water to the river, and what the abundance would look like with the wetlands and with all of the birds and the migrations. And then through all of that, we wove in a story of how, 100 years ago, a bunch of well-intentioned folks planned out a system to build dams and canals and, build all these cities and run pipes through mountain ranges and take water from one basin and put it to the next and divvied out all of the water. And they did such a good job of it that they've ran the river dry and have caused significant ecological damage to native fish, to cottonwood forest galleries, to a lot of the canyons' health. And the film advocates for trying to manage our rivers better and trying to prioritize it for water and wildlife health. And it's exciting. There is a lot of opportunities that can be done, even simple stuff just like managing reservoirs to mimic natural river flows. Small things like that
Mm-hmm.
can make a really big difference for wildlife and river habitat. So that's the movie. Spoiler alert.
Yeah,
You
there's
still need to
so
watch it. Trust me.
much
Yeah.
more. Yeah, yeah. That's the Cole's Notes quick version there's so much
Mm-hmm.
depth to it, and the cinematography alone is worth every minute of watching it. And then the storyline sinks in as it develops along, and by the end, your heart's tugged at. So, yeah.
Yeah,
So
it'll get
Ben,
you. It'll get you.
kind of going into the technical aspects of it, you guys start with you've got a shot list for each species. You've got the story that you eventually want to tell as a whole. Talk us through how you set up the shoots for each shot list, and in particular, the salmon flies. That had to have been incredibly difficult to get the emergence and get that whole sequence and that whole story. So how much footage do you shoot compared to how much makes it into the film, first of all, and then how do you set that up?
So the cinematography for each storyline is really built upon what the story is and how to tell it. So, filming the elk rut in Rocky Mountain National Park, that's a long lens waiting game from the road. You just got to wait
Mhm.
for them to happen. And it took us about 25 days or so to get the epic fight that we did. Uh, and then, I think with elk we had something along the lines of like 12 terabytes of media. So a lot of footage compared to the Jaguar scene, where in the course of 8 months, we had, I think, 22 minutes of Jaguar footage, and we were able to pare that down to a 7 minute sequence. So, the using rates of the shots was really high for Jaguars.
Mhm.
But, depending on what the story was, depending on what the behavior was, would kind of dictate a little bit on what tools we would take into the field, as well as budget too. Of what can we
Right.
afford to use, um, and that would really figure out. All right, I think we're going to need this macro lens. I think we're going to need these tanks. I think we're going to need to supplement it with, some Mavic aerial footage and some topside long lens to build it all out. But for the salmon fly, as an example, I don't know if y'all fly fish or not, but I've been hearing and fishing with salmon flies for the last 20 years of my life, and you see them, and you're like, "Wow, that's cool," and you pick them up, and you're like, How in the world is this, you know, animal still alive? Like it's like flying
Mhm.
into the reeds and like flying into the water. It's like, is this thing its first day to ever fly? And the answer is yes. I mean, they spend 3 years underwater,
Right.
and their life in the air is very, very short. But I've always heard about it, but I never really dove into it. So we started doing this research into salmon flies and learning how they were, these 3 inch long aquatic insects that live in amongst the boulders and feed on, vegetation in between the rocks. And you do a lot of cleansing of the rivers. And then they're plus very important for the food chain, not only for fish, but for stuff topside as well. Um, so I wanted to build out that whole thing as well as motivate why they even emerge and
Mhm.
move. And it's because they spend their entire life getting blasted downstream. And, how are they going to get their offspring back upriver? And that's the reason why they come out, break out of their exuvia, metamorphosize into the flying adult form. And then sometimes they can fly for, several miles upstream before they lay their eggs and die. But in order to film that, we had to go to a really good salmon fly spot and then get into the water, look through the boulders. We just called a bunch of our friends and gave them the credit of salmon fly wrangler in the movie, and started catching salmon fly nymphs. And then we were able to build out some tanks and stuff. And whenever the salmon fly nymphs are ready to emerge and metamorphosize, they crawl out at nighttime and they start walking up some willows. So we like stuck some willows inside the tanks and we had the lights, and sure enough, we're just hanging out drinking beer in the backyard, watching salmon flies, and here one comes crawling out of the water. We're able to film them breaking out of their shell, and had the studio lights. It looks like something out of a horror movie. It's so cool. Um,
Now I'm going to have
so
a
that's kind of how
totally
we.
different visual
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
when
for sure.
I'm going to be watching the shadows, see who's lifting.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Your
And
sound
then
effects too of the breaking of the exoskeleton. It's like the whole alien emergence, for this. So it's just so. And the
so
other,
our sound designer, she was like, "So what does a salmon fly breaking free from its exuvia sound like?" And I was like, I don't know." And she's like, "Does it sound like dried seaweed being crinkled by my hands?"
Sure.
I'm like, yeah, probably something like that. But yeah, the whole foley of how do you bring these animal sounds to life is a whole nother story. That's a ton of fun.
Hmm.
I just
Um,
another thing with the Goslings, the spin on that, the angle, the sound of them coming, and then having them out of focus in the background. It was so Velociraptor goose style
Right,
from
right.
1 inch above the ground. It was so well done. It was like, yeah, it's really engaging.
Even the
yeah,
ground
we based
squirrel.
that sequence off of the Jurassic Park
Yeah,
scene where you like see the ground begin to tremor and you hear the footsteps and the big reveal is a gosling.
That's so funny.
yeah.
It's a whole new
That
light
was
for
fun to edit.
Hmm.
Again, that's where the cold beer with your friends comes into play. It's really good for creativity. Yeah. So yeah, just trying to use different techniques, whatever it takes to get the shot, and borrow gear, rent gear, buy gear, use gear, just try to figure out what it takes to get it done. But
Hmm.
I mean, there's GoPro footage in that movie. Almost all the aerials were shot with the Mavic 3 Cine. Used the R5s a lot. R5C had a Red Gemini as one of our main cameras, and some Sony cameras to do the underwater, and just trying to find the right tools for the jobs and the right folks that know how to do that kind of stuff. It's a interesting skill set. There's a lot of folks that know how to go film um, ungulates or something in a national park, but learning how to film a lot of that macro stuff is a pretty unique skill set.
Yeah, it's got. Go ahead, Mark.
I'm sorry. I'm excited about all this. Another thing is the beavers, right? I mean, there was so much information about the role of beavers, and then, and stop me if none of this should be talked about, but I mean, inside the lodge to get that footage, and the little baby beaver with the little stick looking right at the camera in this dark lodge. I mean, you were able to tell the complete story with your techniques.
Yeah, so one of the really good techniques of being a good film producer is if somebody's already done something that's really, really hard and you can license their footage, you should totally do that. I was trying to figure out like how in the world am I going to shoot this inside of the lodge? Like you can't get any light in there. And then somebody turned me on to a filmmaker in Jackson Hole by the name of Jeff Hogan. And they're like, you got to call Jeff. So I called Jeff and he's like, oh, yeah, I know how to do that. Look at this. And I looked at it. I'm like, sweet. Can we just use that? And it's amazing footage. It's so cool. And then like the beaver cutting down the tree where he does the sigh. That's real beaver audio.
Oh
He's like,
wow.
oh.
That's got to happen a lot in the beaver world.
I know. Like, come on, wind. Come on, give me a hand.
To get
I
the
love
footage though, when the tree falls and the beaver runs out of the way.
right.
I mean,
Or
the
when you're
first thing
hearing
my wife
you're
and
hearing
I
the
looked,
creaking, right? You're hearing the
yeah,
creaking, and he's like looking up, like, is it time? And he waits. It's just perfect. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, that was fun. That was another really fun scene to cut. Yeah, and shoot. And those beaver meadows are amazing. That's Taylor Park, which is a tributary to the Gunnison.
Hmm.
We filmed those amazing beaver lodges, headwaters to the Gunnison, kind of Crested Butte, Taylor Park area. They've got some, and what I've seen of Colorado, the best like huge beaver lodge meadow complexes in the state.
I guess kind of tying into what you just said about licensing the footage, there's a lot of, I mean, so we did some BBC work, and probably the best cinematic shot I've ever seen doesn't even make the cut because it doesn't fit the story. How how do you guys handle your footage that, I mean, potentially, because you've done some huge projects, you've got this one, Deep in the Heart, the Wild Horses, um, some big projects. So the footage that doesn't make the cut, how is that stored and potentially used for future use?
So our post-production workflow is we tend to shoot in like a compressed file in the field.
Mm-hmm.
We historically have been shooting raw, but I'm kind of getting away from raw just because of the file sizes and because buying extra hard drives is the least favorite way to spend money. So we'll shoot like a high quality log format in the field. Right now, we've switched entirely over to Canon. So we have C400 and C80. We shoot the Canon RAW LT, or we shoot the YCC 422 10-bit, which I can't tell the difference. I think both of them look amazing, as does our colorist with a $60,000 Flanders Scientific monitor. That's 10,000 nit with an HDR grade. He can't tell the difference, so I can't either. Um, but that's kind of our primary camera bodies now. With the American Southwest, we were shooting a lot on the R5 and the R5C and the Red Gemini, as well as a couple other cameras. And then the Mavic 3 Cine was our primary aerial camera. But we'll shoot in the field, and then we'll bring it back into the office. And I made it in life. I rent a house in South Austin and make wildlife movies with my friends. So we like converted all these little rooms into offices, and it's a lot of fun. And we have a server that is a jellyfish server.
Mm-hmm.
And we create proxies from the raw media. We do 422 ProRes proxy files, and we'll put that onto the server, and then we'll build out projects in DaVinci Resolve. The projects are based by animal sequence. So we'll have like our elk project, and then we'll have our beaver project and our salmon flyer project. And then once we begin to assemble the film, we'll take those exports from each of the projects, put it together to make the movie. And then towards the end of it, we'll kind of combine everything into one. And then we back up everything on LTO tape. An LTO tape is a 50-year storage device. You can put about, I think, 18 terabytes of media. It's like $250 to hold that much storage, and it keeps it secure for 50 years compared to like spinning discs and stuff. Their typical lifespan is like 7 to 10 years or so. So we store all the raws long term. We log it. We try to archive it because 50 years from now, when somebody wants to look at it, I'd sure hate it if it wasn't organized and easily accessible. That would be quite rude to the future. And then we'll cut away on the ProRes proxies, and we'll make our movie, and then we'll get it all picture locked, and then we'll relink the original raw footage to the picture and send it over to the colorist, who then makes us look like good cinematographers. Hit the old export button in a nutshell.
Yeah, color and sound design make a guy look a lot better than maybe
I think it's more important than
were
lenses
in
and
the
camera
field.
bodies.
It's insane what they can do.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, people don't like to talk about it, but like it's like some of the stuff, even just off like the Canon 5D Mark II, anything that's 10-bit, underneath a good color grader, it just looks like it was, an Aria Alexa with the amazing lens on it. Like as long as it's uh, exposed well whenever it's
Mm-hmm.
shooting, it's pretty incredible what a colorist can do. So that's kind of our workflow on the post side of things, and it takes a long time to cut a full feature film like this. We were tweaking on it for a year.
I was looking at the jellyfish. The issue with us is we never occupy the same space, so we're all shooting different parts of the country. So those things are incredible in that, hey, everybody can come back, plug into it, and work away. But being in
So
different places, we are looking more at a NAS system. But those things are very appealing for if you've got a group working on a project.
Totally. They are. They're fast. They're pretty stable. They have good customer service. And we're actually doing a lot of remote editing right now.
Mm-hmm.
We've got three features being worked on concurrently right now. So we've got an editor in Bozeman, another one at Bristol that are all cutting off of the jellyfish. And they're using a software called Jump, where they are able to access the jellyfish via a remote machine by Wi-Fi. So we just have like a little laptop that is the dedicated laptop for the remote editor, and they're able to access the jellyfish and cut in real time as long as they have fast enough internet. It's just pretty cool.
Selfish question. Is that Jump proprietary software to the jellyfish system, or is that something that you can use with any drive?
Jump is anything that you can use with anything. So if you have like a big G RAID or something, and Jason needs a file, and you're like, dude, I don't want to go search through all these files. You can literally just plug in your computer, and then he can access it all through Jump and go find the file himself.
We just might have found a little piece of magic right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice. You can open it up in Lightroom. I mean, everything is at your fingertips. All you have to do is have the Wi-Fi, and you know how it is. I mean, storage, you can spend so much money and time and hassle with it, and having, one machine, you kind of get that economy of scale if you get something big and stable.
Yeah, I've been shopping right now, and it's crazy how fast you can spend $7,000 or more.
Yeah, that sure is. Which is like the least sexy way to spend money ever.
That's a fact.
Lenses, on the other hand, there's always room in the budget for a new prime.
Mine are all for sale.
But that's because you're buying new ones. So.
We just got, Jason and I, the 100 to 300 RF. It is unbelievable how flexible that lens is. You throw a 2X on it, is dead sharp. It's crazy. But yeah,
it's very
like,
cool.
It's
I'm in love with the 100 to 500. So please don't tell me this. I'm happily married to that 1 to 500 right now.
I was gonna say, and for you, the light's not as much of an issue, but the 1 to 300 literally is like 3 lenses in one. It's incredible. So you might want to look into it a little bit, Ben.
Okay. I would like to do that. I'm going to be in Rocky in September, so
Are you?
let's go shoot.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I love it.
If you're on a mission to find wildlife, consider this cool product from our sponsor. Hey, listen in. If you're still strapping your expensive camera to your neck with a flimsy strap that looks like more fashion than function, congrats, you're living on the edge. But hey, if you'd rather not risk turning your camera gear into a pile of broken dreams, then maybe, just maybe, check out Cotton Carrier Camera Carrying System. You can carry on living dangerously, or you can carry gear safe and sound with cottoncarrier.com. And while you're in there, use code BTW10 for a 10% discount on anything found on the website. cottoncarrier.com. Oh yeah, now back to it.
We were chatting and you touched on the subject, the coveted cinematography lens, the 50 to 1000 millimeter Canon, that is typically $70,000 or more. You're saying that now new glass, that isn't the dream lens it has always been for cinematography. The RF glass, you're preferring that. Did I hear that correctly? Or
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So I bought a 50 to 1000 9 years ago. And it was probably one of the best investments I've made, in the sense that, we were able to shoot a whole Big Bend for Nat Geo. We shot a whole nother Big Bend deal for PBS. We shot Deep in the Heart. We shot the American Southwest. So it was a very, very good investment. It was a big investment. Like you said, I think it's $85,000 new. And I sold it. I sold it for, um, about half of what I paid for it. And it's an amazing lens. Where the 50 to 1000 is such a valuable tool is it's so big and you can put it on a big tripod and you can get really smooth pans and tilts. And if you're a really experienced cinematographer, you can change the focus and follow your subject. And it's amazing to be able to go from, 100 millimeter shot to 900 millimeter shot. It's a sequence getter. Like one person can shoot an entire sequence right there in front of them. You don't need two cameras. You don't need you can do the whole thing by yourself with that one lens. So it's an amazing tool. And it's a super powerful tool. I love its look. It has like a kind of softer, creamy, beautiful, cinematic look to it. And it's an amazing lens, but I sold it because it's heavy and it's expensive and there's no image stabilization on it. It requires a big old tripod. It gets a lot of eyeballs, like whenever you're in a national park or something, literally everybody flocks to you because you're sitting out there with the 50 to 1000. And then the image quality, whenever it comes to sharpness and you're looking for like a 6K or an 8K sharpness quality of sensor, the 50 to 1000 was not intended for that. It was, designed and constructed like 15, 18 years ago for, 1920 by 1080 shooting. It was not comprehended back then that there would be people shooting in 8K. So just optically, it doesn't perform at that same level. So we shoot a lot with the 600 prime, with the 1200 prime, and then with the 100 to 500. Those are our like primary lenses, but like the 600 prime compared to the 50 to 1000, it is so much sharper than the 50 to 1000. So I sold it, and I got like 10 lenses for it. And I miss it sometimes, and I have regrets that I sold it sometimes because I love it, and it's a beautiful lens that will always have a special place in my heart. But it went to a very good home and a wonderful cinematographer that is constantly in the field. So it's continuing to live a good life and racking up a bunch of amazing footage for nature programs.
Awesome. Super interesting.
Yeah, but I don't think, people get so hung up on like sharpness and stuff, but I think with video, it doesn't really matter as much as still photography. Your animal's moving, your shutter speed is, 50th of a second, so it's not super crisp anyways. So I think that there's a lot more flexibility. And there's a lot of directors of photography networks that really like that old glass because it's not super crisp. Like, I don't really want to know how many wrinkles are in your face. Like, it's kind of nice to have that kind of buttery smoothness to the image.
Glow. I don't know if you heard that.
You have to say it again. All we saw was the jazz hands, Mark. Sorry.
Really? Oh, I said no. You said that nice smooth. I said just a nice soft glow. Yeah.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
ring. That's all it took. I don't know where you guys want to go with it, but I'd love to hear a bit about the bird where there's only 100, or is it what's
1150?
No, that was
Condors.
Condors.
that was the number, but there's only 100, right? Is that right? Where I have that written down?
That are alive right now?
That's
Yeah.
in the Vermilion Cliffs. I think that's accurate. Is around 100 birds.
That region, not total population for the condors.
So the history of condors in a nutshell is there's an Andean condor in South America, and then the ones that we have here are the California condor, although they were all over the place. I don't know why California got to claim them by their name, but there used to be fairly widespread, um, very large scavenging bird that is about 9.5 feet wingspan. And throughout the 1900s, they were just mysteriously dying from a variety of reasons. Some of it's just persecution against scavengers because some people think that they're ugly. I think they're beautiful. Um, but they were just mysteriously keeling over, and it got to such an extent where there were fewer than 2 dozen of them left in the world, and it was very controversial at the time because you had some people in the conservation community saying we got to go capture the last of these birds and put them in a captive breeding facility so that they don't go extinct, and then you had other people saying like, what happens if you accidentally kill them during the capture process? What happens if they don't do well in captivity? What if we make them go extinct by doing this process? But it got to the point where the decision was made. They went and captured all of these California condors, largest flying bird in North America, and they um, began a captive breeding program. And there was a big breakthrough that was made whenever they were able to like have 2 eggs instead of one each year. They began to propagate these birds, built some enclosures, and then they released them into the Vermilion Cliffs, which is near Navajo Bridge, near Lee's Ferry, so upstream of Grand Canyon National Park. I don't recall the exact date, Mark, on whenever they did the release. I believe it was during the 90s, like late 90s, but please don't hold me accountable to that date. So they released them, and they have done well in the Vermilion Cliffs. They are flying over the Grand Canyon, over the Kaibab Plateau. They'll go into southern Utah a little bit, into like Zion and like Fish Lake and kind of that area. And their numbers have increased from like the few dozen that they released, and now I believe there's around 100 or so birds, but again, it could be like 130 or it could be a little bit below 100, but it is a success story. And there's one organization in particular that I think should be attributed to a lot of that success, and that's the Peregrine Fund, based out of Boise. They conserve raptors worldwide, but they're the NGO that has really run with the California Condor program in the Vermilion Cliffs. Obviously, there's a lot of partners: U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Arizona Game and Fish. The Peregrine Fund has been really instrumental in recovering the condors in the Vermilion Cliffs area. And it just so happened magically that as we were filming this Southwest film, there was a condor couple that had a nest in an extremely visible location. So we decided to post up, film the nest, and try to get the first flight of the condor, which did not go as planned.
First flight of anything,
Story.
huh?
It did make for a good story. Yeah. Yeah. When it drops out of frame and like Alan, the cinematographer, he's like searching for the bird. Like, where'd you go? It was kind of a funny story there. I went and I filmed this bird, and I get up there, and there's this older fellow there. I shouldn't say older, uh, retired fellow, uh, lovely man. He's filming the condor. I'm like, what are you filming for? He's like, just like film. Maybe someday it'll go into a movie. And I was like, that's great, Alan. Like, how about we put it in our movie?
How
And he
cool is that?
proceeded to film for like the next 55 days. He was just there filming anyways. And I was like, great. Here's a 50 to 1000. Shoot it with this. And he did. And it was an amazing scene. One of the best scenes in the film, one of the best bird sequences I think ever. It was just unbelievable how that bird tumbled off the cliff and then was able to climb back up. It was so cool.
Hmm.
Yeah, you're rooting for the bird the whole way for sure. You're like, you can do it. Come on.
We had
Yeah, it was a conundrum because they're like critically endangered. It's like, should we try to go down and help him? What do we do here?
we
It was
had
that was
a
a good fall that he took.
Yeah.
California condor showed up in the Medicine Bow Range in southern Wyoming last year,
Oh wow.
and I tried and tried and tried, never did get it, but I know a few people that did, and it's it's kind of one of those things. You think back when we were kids, and the species that were of great concern then: California condor, black-footed ferret, whooping crane, those species that were always talked about while we were in grade school. And they have had some success. And that's when the Endangered Species Program was utilized as it was intended and not just as a flow through for attorney's fees and lawsuits. And that's where most of it goes now, unfortunately. But there were some of those recoveries that, that were going on in the 70s, 80s, 90s that have been hugely successful. And yeah, while that doesn't sound like a lot of birds, it sure beats seven,
Oh
which,
yeah, and that's just the Vermilion Cliffs population.
right. Yeah, yeah.
They have a captive breeding program up in Boise. They're working with a tribe in Oregon. I believe it's the Yakima tribe. They're doing
Hmm.
a reintroduction of condors up there. There's a reintroduction of condors in Baja, Mexico. There's some down in California. They're looking at putting some in other potential places. So it is an ongoing recovery story. There's a lot of work to be done. The big thing that kills condors is lead poisoning
Hmm.
of going hunting, shooting a deer, gutting it, packing out the meat, and then the condor is like, "Oh wow, look at that gut pile down there. I'm gonna go eat it." And they go down there and eat it, and they ingest that lead, and it kills them. That is the number one thing that kills condors. It's so bad that each winter, right after deer season, the Peregrine Fund captures a lot of the birds, and they will have to do um, chelation therapy to remove the lead from the condor's body in order to save them. So even with all of the volunteer efforts of hunters switching over to lead or to non-lead ammunition, that's still the number one killer of condors. Is there's some hunters that just haven't made the switch. There's a lot of hunters that still don't know that lead kills scavenging birds. So, try to spread that awareness out there. If you hunt or have somebody else that hunts, just switching over to non-lead ammunition. That way you don't accidentally kill scavenging birds.
Hmm.
Now it goes the same thing with golden eagles and bald eagles too.
Right.
Right. Yeah, I looked it up really quick just for information. It says there are about over 560 condors in existence, and there's about 347 in the wild with 214 in captivity. So that's over
How many are
Arizona,
in the
Utah.
Grand Canyon? Does
Um,
it say how many are in the Grand Canyon area?
I didn't look that up specifically, but I can. Yeah, but anyways, it says that's over be Arizona, Utah, California, and Mexico. But
Okay.
I'll look that up too while we continue to chat. But
That's great. In
yeah,
40 years, we've gone from 2 dozen to 560. Hell yeah.
that's a pretty
Go
good success
humans.
story. Yeah.
Not up there with elk yet.
No.
No, no, no.
So there's so much back to your show, to the movie as well. I mean, and watching, it was 1150 was his number, the tag, the hatchling, when he climbed back up, using his beak to climb too, grabbing on. I mean, he was doing everything to get back up. Great storytelling. But to throw facts in there, like they can fly 100 miles in a day. Well, think about that for a moment too, right? And they can live 50 years if they can stay healthy. Amazing, amazing birds, and just to see how graceful they are when they do learn to fly as well. It's
Yeah. They were the perfect vector to fly through the Grand Canyon and talk about public lands, to take that POV and see
Hmm.
that huge bird just as a tiny speck on the landscape. That's like probably my favorite moment in the film. Like as a public land lover who spent a lot of my life traveling through public lands, that moment really speaks to me. I'm quite proud of that. And Noah, the fellow that wrote the music, he absolutely knocked it out of the park right in there with that music cue. It gets me every time.
Nah, it's incredible. Yeah, it says 80 to 85 birds in the Vermilion Cliffs area right now. So,
Okay.
yeah, you
So
were
the best time to go down and photograph them, and I definitely suggest it, is like November to February or so, probably. The Navajo Bridge right there that goes over the Colorado River. They roost on the bridge sometimes at night, and then they'll also roost just kind of on some of the Vermilion Cliffs up above. But they'll get off the bridge in the morning at like, I don't know, 9:30 or 10 or so, whenever the thermals start to lift, and they'll get off and then they'll just begin to soar, and they'll kind of soar right around you around the bridge, and then they'll begin to take up and get their elevation, and they'll go out and cruise for the day, and then they'll come back and do the kettling formation and come back down and re-enter into the bridge. But that's the best place to get really great flying shots and really great sometimes you get them to like land and stuff and get portraits and that kind of thing.
Hmm.
Yeah, I've actually seen him there before. It's really cool.
And the
And
writing,
1150 was right there at the bridge. It was like the most convenient shooting location. It was like perfect view,
right?
eye
Yeah.
level.
find that. One of the statements, there's so many, if you listen to the writing throughout, that just fit perfectly. You phrase it with public lands, we all have a stake in our environment, right? Just to get that through and have that resonate, that all the public should be invested in these watersheds and learn about them and act and care accordingly. And there's so much information in your movie about that. Tons.
Which is also timely with all the proposed legislation and proposed sale of public lands, just to keep that in mind. I mean, we all do have a stake in it, and the only way we're going to save it is if we continue to do so. If we just let people do what they would like to do, our opportunities on public lands are gonna be gone. I mean, like a lot of the species that we love, they're in decline, and so I think that statement, Mark, that you just plucked out of there, I think resonates for several different reasons. Not only for the film, but I think we all need to be conscious of that and be good stewards, and kind of bringing it back full circle to what we were talking about at the beginning. There's plenty of opportunities out there to volunteer, and I think as non-consumptive users, a lot of times we as photographers are very selfish, and we don't give back when there are opportunities to do so. We take the images and then we're out of there. And there's plenty to do when the images aren't available. So keep that in mind and go out there, be a good steward and be a good volunteer, and let your voice be heard.
And just picking up on that, Ron, one of the things that I've noticed working with a lot of different NGOs and brands, um, well, especially with the NGOs, there's so many photos taken of wildlife, and I think every conservation organization has horrible photos. And just like the connection between getting great imagery and trying to sell the conservation of that species.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got staff and if you're pumping money into rehabilitation and if you're pumping money into the rewilding, you're doing all of that stuff. Like, do you really want to pay a photographer $500 a day to go out there and take pictures of it? Or do you want to put that money into, rearing new birds for release? So I think that one of the things that, photographers could do, and something that we try to do at Fitted for Films, is give back. And, with a lot of our images that we take and a lot of our reels, we try to, help them out. And they're going to be the best people that are going to give us more condors to go out and film in the future. So it's kind of an investment into them to give us more of what we love.
Mm-hmm.
Well
That's
said.
a good point.
What about you, Jason? Favorite sequence?
Man, I'm such an elk nut. I don't know. I'm torn because I think the elk's fight scene. I was actually I witnessed some of that, which was kind of cool. It was really interesting to see that because I was actually photographing. I have some photographs from that sequence and some terrible video clips, and those were incredible. The clips were amazing. But I also really enjoyed the salmon fly portion, and I learned a ton about that, which was incredible. And then the Jaguar stuff, we haven't talked about that yet. I'm really excited to hear your thoughts on that and how you guys approach that. But the Jaguar sequence and just the fact that you're able to catch the female doing her thing and then the male coming along and marking the same. I mean, come on, man. I mean, yeah. What? I mean, you talk about
Well, there's a
storytelling.
pretty good chance if you got your camera sitting there, Jason.
Yeah, that's a fact. But to have it in the right spot to catch the right thing, Anyways, yeah, yeah. The whole movie is incredible, but those were probably my favorites that were the highlights for me.
Yeah, and Deep in the Heart, just to tie into that and then let you run with it. But Deep in the Heart, my favorite footage was the ocelot footage that you guys got. And there's a lot of camera trapping that went on there as well. What was the comparison between the two?
So before I forget, I need to give a big shout out to the cinematography team that filmed both Deep in the Heart and the American Southwest. In particular, Ryan Olinger. He was the guy that nailed that incredible elk fight sequence. Skip Hobby, he's our macro guru that does all of the amazing salmon fly, and he's good at everything, but like the macro stories are the things that he's really good at. Isaiah Branch Broyles, he's part of the Natives Outdoors team with the beavers. He knocked it out of the park, as well as the petroglyphs scene. And then there was a lot of shooters that kind of came in for one scene or two scenes, but that was kind of our core group in addition to Patrick Thrash. And then there's Austin Alvarado, who is one of my best friends, and he is an amazing camera trapper. He is so like the shot where it's like full frame Jaguar with its claws. It's like, dude, you went for that? Like, what in the world? That's such a high risk shot. And he's like, yeah, well, I wanted to get a portrait of its claws. But Austin, he was our camera trap magician for American Ocelot. He was also in charge of the camera traps for the Jaguars, for the American Southwest. But kind of how that Jaguar footage came to be is as we were researching different stories of how do we film these Jaguars, or should we even film these Jaguars? There was some sightings around Tucson, and I was like, all right, let's go down and see if we can't get it. And then we gave ourselves the liberty of going south of the border to the Northern Jaguar Reserve, where the cats are more frequently visited, but it's the same population. So the Northern Jaguar Reserve is about 80,000 acres of deeded land. Actually, I don't know if that's true. I think it may be closer to 40. There's like the conversion between hectares and acres that always throws me off. But they have a large chunk of land that is kind of like in the nucleus of the Northern Jaguar population. And then they also work with a bunch of different ranches on the outskirts of it. And they have a program called Viviendo Confilinos, where they are working with a lot of these different vaqueros and a lot of these different landowners, giving them camera traps and asking them to set up camera traps on the property and paying them to set up the camera traps and then paying them whenever they get Jaguar photos. So they're able to get all of this amazing data. The vaqueros and the ranchers are able to, get to see their Jaguars and get paid every time they get a Jaguar. So it's created this system where the Jaguars appear to be stable there in northern Mexico, possibly even increasing. And that's where we're getting all of our Jaguars in the lower 48, into Arizona. They're coming up out of Mexico. So we went down there. They have these arroyos look very similar to Sky Island stuff that you see in Arizona, like the Huachucas and Mount Lemmon and that kind of stuff. Or down there at the bottom of the canyon, you'll kind of have like a little stream during the monsoon season, and then be kind of some thick brush. And that's where we did the majority of our camera trapping, because those Jaguars, they like to from point A to point B. Sorry, I'm getting a child abduction alert. Breaks my heart.
Yeah.
So we went down there, and there was two field technicians at Miller Jaguars, or Miguel and Lockie. Miguel was a reserve manager, and he took us out and showed us some different arroyos, showed us some different spots where these Jaguars had been seen in the past, on fairly frequently. And we had Canon R5s inside of a Cognisus box.
Mm-hmm.
And we went out and looked for beautiful frames in the areas where he said that there was Jaguars. And there was one spot in particular that became kind of the central location of the cinematography. We discovered this palm tree that had fallen down, and on top of it were just tons of scratch marks where cats had come in and put in their claws and scraped it back, and left the scent from underneath their pads. And it was a communication site, a communication site used by bobcats, ocelots, puma, mountain lion, or either or, and jaguars. So it was really cool. We got all 4 species of cats marking on the same tree and communicating with each other, which is pretty neat. And kind of our strategy for sequence build out for camera trapping is, there's kind of a weighing the odds of, do you scatter them all out everywhere and hope to get like singular clips, or do you condense them into fewer areas, which is higher risk? But then if you do have a pass through and everything works properly, then you would be able to get like, 4 different clips out of one event, which is what we tend to do is try to put like 3 or 4 cameras in one particular site. So we went for the gold and put in the majority of our camera traps into this one site, and it really worked out well. We had this Jaguar, this beautiful Jaguar named Libellula, who has a dragonfly pattern in her rosettes. So they call her the dragonfly because of that pattern. She came through several times during the 8-month period that we had the camera traps up and operating, as well as a male that came through as we were operating. And yeah, it was really cool because she came in one night and came in scratched, and then like the next night the male came through and like came in and smelled exactly where she was. He scratched, and then miraculously, out of everywhere they could have gone, they went to one of our other camera trap sites where we were able to get them there as well. So it's just so fortuitous that we were able to get that courtship behavior between the male and the female. And just really, really lucky to be honest. We were hoping to get like 2 or 3 shots of Jaguars, not a full on, pursuit sequence. It was pretty special, super special. And they're so cool. Like when I hopped on and just like look at you in the eye and start scratching, it's like, holy smokes, that animal is real.
Well, I think that's the magic. That's the magic of it. Is your guys are so good at what they do that it does look like a pursuit sequence. It looks like they're, traveling with the cats. You guys did such a great job, with the ocelots, and because the ocelots, there was a lot of undergrowth that they were going through. So it didn't look like you'd be able to do it all with camera traps. And I understand in post you're using different parts of the frame to give the impression of motion, but just the placement of those cameras themselves and giving yourself the opportunity to do that. Holy smokes.
And there was a pursuit sequence, just to be clear, like that was the same clip of like the male and the female
Mm-hmm.
in the same shot, which is, you know, good luck if you
Right.
put that in the shot list. Like, okay, fine.
Yeah.
We got lucky. And, you know, I think it really shows so what ended up happening to the Bellula, the female that we documented, she was at least 12 years old that they know of, that they've been seeing this cat on camera. And it was like 6 or so months after we got done filming that sequence, and she was actually found dead in an arroyo, you know, dying of she died from natural causes. And that's just amazing that, you know, down there in Mexico, there's jaguars just living their lives and reproducing and living to a ripe old age and dying of natural causes. And, you know, that's the possibility that they will once again return to the United States, or I should say are returning to the
returning.
United States.
Yeah.
Just last week, there was a new jaguar that was spotted in the Tucson area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's incredible that you guys were able to get those sequences and add that to the ecological checklist, I guess, if you will.
Yeah, you know, it was pretty neat. It was pretty neat. And, you know, one of the things that I'm passionate about is borderlands conservation. And, you know, what I hoped with that sequence is, you know, for people to see that jaguar, to see the borderlands, to see how cool that country is, and to consider, like, you know, can we achieve our immigration challenges in a way that still allows for some of that wide open country to remain open and allow wildlife to move back and forth, and, you know, to keep some of those travel corridors open. That's something that's really important to me. I'd love to continue to see jaguars returning to the United States.
Yeah, we didn't even really touch on that, but the way you guys fit that in with the border control issues, you know, and the challenges there with the wildlife was really nice too. I mean, and for me, one of the really stark scenes was right towards the end, and I know, I mean, it just was so well done. It just really had an impact on me. But the seeing the delta and what it could be like, and then seeing the fact that the river literally stops flowing, the scene with the puddle with the tire, and then that just wasteland was, yeah, it was tugging at me for sure. It was just like, this is insane. Like, yeah, something's got to.
Yeah.
But
that was the heaviest part of the filming experience for me. Is, you know, we kind of filmed it chronologically as well, where, you know, the first sequence we did was in Rocky Mountain, and you see the river, and it's just constantly just sending water downstream, just so much water, and there's so many thousands of these tributaries and constantly sending water. It seems like an infinite amount, and it just never sunk in, I guess, that you could use all of it. And then getting down to the Delta and seeing that last canal and just seeing the wasteland, it really bothered me. It just made me sad.
right.
Like it made me angry, but it's like just sad more than anything. I got to go on a dream trip a few years ago to the Okavango Delta. It was like a lifelong dream that I've had to go there and see it. And it's where this river in Africa dumps into this big inland delta, and it creates this amazing wetland. And, you know, we had that in the Colorado River Delta. We had a 2 million acre wetland, and it was one of the greatest wetlands in the Americas. There was jaguars, there was mesquite bosques, there was, you know, willows and cottonwoods, and like this huge verdant Garden of Eden. And, you know, to lose that in one human lifetime is just so So sad. Like the river should have some water dedicated for the river. Even if it's only like 5% or something, there should be some water dedicated for the river.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a possibility that, that could happen one day. I mean, I think values have changed. I think people now recognize, the importance of having healthy riversheds and healthy water and healthy river bottoms. And there's a lot of value, from a tourism perspective, just from like a quality of living standard perspective. And, in 2026, they're renegotiating the Colorado River management system between all of the different states. And there's a lot of folks pushing for, better management of the river, more holistic management of the river, and also allocating some water, to the river itself and to the wildlife. And that's really our big impact goal with the movie. You probably finished it and you see there's a QR code right there at the end that says, encourage your representative to manage the Colorado River Basin in a way that prioritizes more river health and for wildlife, but also for us. It's like, I like to fish. I like salmon fly.
Yeah.
I want there to be a cool river.
I like clean air. I like clean water. I like
I drink it every day.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's like millions of acre feet a year that get exported out of the country. That's like the definition of surplus. So there's obviously not a shortage.
Right. Yeah, and we didn't even talk about the narrator. That was another.
I was just gonna,
really enjoyed.
Yeah, everything was well thought out, right from the selection of, your film crew, your cinematographers. We've talked a lot about them, but selecting her to bring that story, I think, was very well thought out as well.
Yeah,
I appreciate you saying that. It's kind of a bold choice. The safe route, especially from, just my background, is to go with somebody that's more of like a Matthew McConaughey or, kind of a safe bro that I have a lot in common with. But that was a suggestion that Lynn had. It was to reach out to Quanah because she was born in Tuba City, and I can't imagine somebody giving a better narration performance. She took it really seriously, memorized those lines, and just delivered it with so much heart. You forget that she's talking to you, honestly. Yeah. She's just a guide, and that's how I prefer my natural history. I don't want to know who's telling me this. I just want to be along for the journey. And you forget who's talking, but at the same time, it's so important because there's like small inflection in the emotion within the dialogue. And then there's just these, but more than anything, she allows the wildlife to take the precedence, to allow the music to take the precedence, and for that to be the primary story, not to like seek to have her voice be the primary driving behind it.
It was very natural, very connected with the story, and a lot of depth to it. She was fantastic.
Motherly, almost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Incredible. I feel very fortunate to have gotten a sneak peek. And I may have watched it more than once. Just, as long as I got the link, I might watch it.
Go right ahead, man. Please. We made it for people to watch, and it just brings me so much joy to see people connect with it, and to pick out lines like what you did, Mark, and say that the public land line spoke to you, and everybody's going to get a little bit different things out of the film.
There are many lines. This is really well written in this. The cinematography, the lines, it's a complete package, and it's so meaningful, honestly. Well done. Superb. So where can our audience find it after they listen to this? Like right now, where can they find it?
So I am doing something that could be a very questionably absurd business endeavor, but we put the movie in theaters, which I promise you is not a inexpensive or faint of heart endeavor. I'm hoping it works out. But we are going to open the movie in 70 theaters across the Southwest. We approached them, and this is a very unconventional film. There's just not wildlife movies in theaters, period,
Right.
pretty much. But there was some major chains like AMC and Harkins and some Regals, and as well as a lot of art house film studios like The Loft and Tucson, and they all got behind it and were like, you know what, this is pretty abnormal, but we're going to give it a screen time and we're going to give it a chance. And I'm hoping it works out. I'm cautiously optimistic that there's a lot of folks that love this kind of movie, and I would love to be able to have it be a big hit and have it be a success and kind of pave the way for other filmmakers to do this kind of film in other places and prove that this model of, positive, family-friendly wildlife movies is one that has a place on the big screen, just like Batman 17 and Superman 45 and all the other movies that have been coming out for the last few decades. So on September the 5th, the American Southwest is being released in about 70 theaters in Utah, Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, Southern California, and Las Vegas. So please, if you're listening, I would love for you to consider going and watching it on the big screen. It's pretty cool to see a Jaguar the size of an 18-wheeler come out from the left side of the frame and give you a good stern look.
Where can people go, Ben, to see like what theaters it might be available in? Is there a location to do that? Or
so we have a website called theamericansouthwest.film, and on it there is a theater list.
Cool.
So if you live in the Southwest, you can find the theater really easily. That's also listed on Fandango as well.
Oh.
Like if you Google it, it'll pop up the closest screening next to you. But the American Southwest.film, you can see both the trailer as well as the theater list to find the nearest spot next to you.
Cool.
And it looks pretty cool on theater, Jason. You should
No.
You should try to go watch it.
Oh, I'm gonna go watch it in the theater. I'm literally gonna make a commitment to find the theater nearest me, and even if it's in St. George, I'm going to take my kids and we're going to go see it in person. So I'm excited.
I'm probably going to have to drive down there too.
Yeah. Come and join me, Ron. Let's go make a weekend of it. Seriously.
Where's home for you, Ron?
Douglas, Wyoming. So
okay.
the eastern side of the state, not the popular.
We're doing an Estes Park screening on the 9th at the Y
really?
Center at the YMCA.
Yeah, that's close. That's only 2.5 hours.
I mean, there might be a bugle and bull to like welcome the movies entrance
Probably
right outside.
will, yeah.
Almost guarantee it.
And it's not in the park, so I'll bring my bugle and we can sing to me.
There you go. I love it.
Awesome.
Ben, I'm a huge fan of all your films. I've been a fan ever since I got to watch Unbranded and didn't even really know who you were as a person, but it's been an honor to get to know you and to call you a friend and to be a part of, some of this stuff in a small way too. So I'm honored to have gotten to be able to screen it. And I just, huge fan. I can't wait to see what else you've got. There's a ton. If you go to the Fin and Fur Films website, there's a ton of the main feature films are there, but there's a ton of short films that are listed there too. And all of them are really, really cool. So if you're listening and you haven't seen any of these films or, checked out the website and seen some of the other films, they're all incredible. Ben and his team do a great job. So please go and support.
Well, I got to give a shout out back to Jason because I needed a stellar elk image for the poster. And I was like, hey, Jason, do you have any good elk photos? And he sends me a Google Drive. There's like 1,000.
I may have overdid it. I apologize for that. Yeah.
And we found the perfect one, and it really added a lot to the key art and to the trailer. So thanks so much for letting us use that.
It was my honor. I appreciate you thinking of me. So
yeah, and also for having us on the podcast. I mean, this is so much fun to nerd out and talk about this kind of stuff, and letting me come and profess our love for Jaguars and Beavers and open country. It means a lot. And I look forward to sharing it with
We
the
appreciate
folks
you're
that
a busy
we're
guy, so we
Oh,
definitely
man.
appreciate your time as well.
You've always been so gracious to come and join us and chat, so we appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I feel the same, and I'll get back to making a movie, and I'll see you again in here in 2 years, or I'll see you out in the field somewhere.
Yeah, hopefully that sooner than later. That'd be fun. So
Yeah. If y'all come across any incredible critter sequences, please give me a shout. We're always looking to do new stuff and expand, and I hope that things work out on the business side of stuff, because it'd be cool to figure out a path to where more and more folks can begin to do this type of film, because I think it's important, and it's just tricky to do it. And Nat Geo does some of these things and Netflix does some of these things, but oftentimes it's kind of outsiders coming in to tell a story that's not really curated for the people and meant for the people that live there. And
the stories are curated, which is unfortunate sometimes, because it's not the true. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. You can watch for that in this film, and you pick up that it's all genuine. It's not pieced together from different, what I mean, like we see sometimes, right? So anyways, incredible.
So are y'all gonna stop shooting stills and start making movies now? Hey
man, listen, Ron's already been trying to get me to do more video. Ron already does quite a bit of video, so it's working. It's working.
Yeah. Canon C80. Canon C80 is off. Nice.
C70 was
I sold
nice.
all my cinema cameras. I'm a C80. I'm a big C80 fan.
Okay. Right.
Canon C80 at Pictureline. So is that where
Pictureline.com? That's a really good place to set it.
Colin, you have a Canon C80 or 3 sitting on the shelf.
Yeah.
Get them in.
Yeah. It's got internal ND filters, XLR ports, ISO 12,800. What more could you ask for?
4-second pre-record.
What's the price?
Yeah. We don't want to price about that.
I think the price is, I don't know what the price is. I think it's like 4,500, 5,500.
Oh, really?
It's really not that bad. No.
But I mean, I'd put the image quality against, the $30,000 cinema cameras. I can't tell the difference.
I know Colin as well down at Pictureline.
I do.
Yeah.
He really likes it when I call.
He does. I know he does.
Yeah. They're good. They're good peeps.
They really are.
They always help us get us outfitted. I've had some bad experiences buying camera gear of getting stuff that was used really horribly and just stuff that's faulty. And that is one of those nice things about Pictureline is if you're going to order from them, it's going to come on time and it's going to be what you order. And they worked with us on getting the Utah tax rebate, so we don't have to pay sales tax on it and stuff, which was really helpful. So big fans of them.
Yeah, awesome.
Very cool. Yeah, we definitely appreciate Pictureline and Canon USA sponsoring our podcast. Both primary
Canon USA is the sponsor of this?
Right.
We're just giving them all their praise. I had no idea. We've sold all of our other cameras. We're just using RF and just C80 and C400. Honestly, it's what else do you need?
That's beautiful.
Very cool. Well, Ben, it's been a pleasure to meet you, and your movie is absolutely fantastic on every level. I loved it. And just the storytelling, the cinematography, the scope of subject matter, and this truly meaningful message. It was phenomenal. I hope it does you super well financially so that it continues to support what you do and you're passionate about, because I'd love to see more and more coming that way. And everybody listening, Ben, one other thing though, before we go too, finding you on socials. You're on Instagram, right? What's your page there where people could connect and see what you're up to?
So I'm on Instagram at Bincy Masters, but I do have to confess that I kind of post and ghost, and I'm not there very often because I've found it to be a time warp that steals an hour out of my day every day. So I try not to be on social media, but Finnin for Films
Right.
is our film productions social media. And on there, you'll see, who's in the field, what are they shooting, kind of what are we working on, what are we leasing, where can you get tickets, and it's really engaging, and we try to make it really fun. So, Finnin for Films, and then also Ben C. Masters. If you don't mind, I would like to give a shout out to the different conservation organizations that were crucial to the American Southwest. In particular, American Rivers, they're leading the way on trying to figure out a better way to manage the Colorado River. Also, the Peregrine Fund, the Salmon Fly Project, it talks about some bug nerds. Those guys they're your peeps. And then Pro Natura Noroeste down in Mexico, Northern Jaguar Project. We work with a lot of different folks. So if you watch the film and you're like, man, I want to get into condor conservation, we have a Take Action page on our website where you can go and see exactly how to help out some of those different species that are featured in the movie.
Very cool.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And also to all the folks that helped make it too. If you're listening, no, I appreciate you. Thank you for your hard work. These movies are huge team efforts, and I'm very, very, very fortunate to get to work with what I believe is the best film team that exists in the natural history space.
Very
Awesome.
cool. Well, thank you, Ben. Thank you for tuning in, everybody, to another episode of Beyond the Wild podcast. Make sure to check out Ben's film. You'll see the link on our website and on YouTube. If you've been watching, you'd also see all the links going across the bottom of the screen that our producer JG throws up there for easy access that way. Ben, it's been a treat. Thank you for the privilege of screening your show, and it should do wonders. It's well deserved, and all the best.
I appreciate it, Mark. Jason, good to see you.
It's good to see you, my friend.
Hope to see you in the field one day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Hope we'll catch you at Estes at the screening.
Please do. Let's go chase some elk.
Yeah.
That's really easy to talk me into. I'll drop all my commitments.
Twist my arm.
And that's a wrap for another episode of Beyond the Wild podcast. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Pictureline.com, your online source for everything photography, and Canon USA.